Have you ever looked at your life and wondered, why did everything I love eventually leave me? People you trusted disappeared. Relationships you believed would last came to an end. Opportunities you desperately wanted slipped through your hands. And sometimes you stood alone in the silence, wondering if life was punishing you. You asked yourself, what did I do wrong? But what if you were asking the wrong question? What if some of the things you lost were never meant to stay? What if the person who walked away was making room for someone you hadn't met yet? What if the door that closed wasn't a punishment, but protection? The Stoics understood something that takes most people years of pain to discover. Not everything you lose is a loss. Sometimes, life removes what you are too afraid to release yourself. And one day, when you finally become the person you were meant to become, you may look back at everything that left and understand why it had to go. Hello everyone, welcome to the Stoic Hypnosis channel. In this video, we're going to explore the Stoic wisdom behind loss, rejection, endings, and unexpected change, and why the things that broke your heart may have been quietly preparing you for a life you could never see coming. Because one day, you may stop asking why they left and finally understand why they had to. Now, let's get started. Part 1. Not everything you lose was meant to stay. There is a painful truth about life that most of us don't want to accept. Some things are only meant to be part of your story, not the entire story. But when they leave, we rarely see it that way. We see the empty chair, the unanswered message, the familiar name that no longer appears on our phone. We remember the plans we made, the promises, the moments when we believed, this will always be here, and then one day, it isn't. So we ask ourselves why. Why did they leave? Why did the relationship end? Why did that opportunity disappear? Why did life take away something we worked so hard to keep? And when we don't have an answer, we often blame ourselves. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I should have tried harder. Maybe if I had said the right thing. Maybe if I had stayed. Maybe if I had been different. But sometimes there is nothing you could have done. Sometimes an ending is simply an ending. The Stoics understood that everything external is temporary. People change, circumstances change, fortunes change. Even the things we believe are permanent eventually become memories. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to look at life honestly, without pretending that temporary things could somehow become permanent simply because he loved them. And perhaps that is one of the hardest lessons of adulthood. Loving something does not give you ownership over how long it stays. You can love someone deeply and still lose them. You can give everything to an opportunity and still watch it disappear. You can build something carefully and still see it collapse. That doesn't necessarily mean you failed. It means you were living in a world where nothing is guaranteed. And once you accept that, you stop asking life to promise you permanence. Instead, you learn to appreciate what is here while it is here. You stop taking people for granted. You stop postponing the words that matter. You stop assuming tomorrow will give you another chance. Because perhaps the real tragedy isn't that things end. Perhaps the tragedy is that we spend so much time fearing their ending that we forget to live while they are still here. So if something has recently left your life, don't rush to decide that it destroyed you. Give yourself time. Grieve it. Miss it. Let yourself feel the emptiness. But don't immediately label the ending as a punishment. You may not understand it today. You may not understand it tomorrow. But keep walking. Because life has a strange way of revealing its meaning only after we have traveled far enough to look back. And one day, you may turn around and realize the thing you were begging life to give back was the very thing you needed to lose in order to become who you are now. Part 2. Sometimes you are grieving a future that never existed. Sometimes The hardest thing to let go of isn't a person. It's the future you imagined with them. You imagined where you would be 5 years from now. You imagined the home, the conversations, the life you were going to build. You imagined that opportunity becoming successful. You imagined finally reaching the goal you had worked toward for years. And when it disappears, you don't just lose what existed, you lose everything you believed was going to happen. That is why some endings feel so devastating. You are not only grieving yesterday, you are grieving tomorrow. You are grieving a future that existed only inside your mind. And this is where attachment becomes dangerous. Because the human mind loves certainty. We create a picture of how life should unfold, and then we become angry when reality refuses to follow our script. We say, "This wasn't supposed to happen. They were supposed to stay. I was supposed to succeed. My life was supposed to look different by now." But who made that promise? Life didn't. We did. The Stoics understood the danger of demanding that reality match our expectations. They practiced preparing the mind for change. Not because they expected everything to go wrong, but because they understood that nothing external was guaranteed. Think about that for a moment. The person you love may change. The career you built may disappear. The business may fail. The opportunity may pass. The plans you made may become impossible. And none of these things mean you should stop living. They mean you must learn to separate your desire from your dependence. You can desire something deeply without believing you cannot be happy without it. That is freedom. You can say, "I wanted this," without saying, "My life is meaningless because I didn't get it." You can say, "I loved this person," without saying, "I cannot become whole without them." You can say, "I worked hard for this dream," without saying, "If this dream fails, I am a failure." Your life is larger than any single outcome, and sometimes the future you desperately wanted was simply too small for the person you were becoming. You couldn't see that while you were inside the pain. All you could see was the door closing. But years later, you may realize that the closed door forced you to walk somewhere else. You met people you would never have met. You developed strengths you never knew you needed. You discovered parts of yourself that comfort had kept hidden. You became more patient, more disciplined, more independent, more aware of what truly matters. That doesn't mean the loss wasn't painful. It means pain and purpose can exist at the same time. So if something you deeply wanted has recently disappeared, don't force yourself to understand it immediately. You don't need to call it a blessing today. You don't need to pretend you're grateful for the pain. Just keep moving, keep becoming, keep building. Because sometimes the meaning of an ending is only visible from a distance. And the life you are grieving today may not be the life you were meant to live tomorrow. One day, you may look back and realize you weren't being pushed backward, you were being redirected. Before we continue, I want you to think about something you lost. A person, a relationship, a dream, an opportunity. Something you once believed you could never live without. Now ask yourself, what if losing it was not the end of my story? What if there is still a meaning behind that ending that you haven't discovered yet? You may not see it today, and that's okay. Some lessons only become clear after enough time has passed. So if you are going through a painful season right now, don't leave yet. The next lessons may help you understand why certain endings had to happen, and how to stop fighting against what life is trying to teach you. And if this message is speaking to something deep inside you, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support gives me the motivation to continue creating deeper content about stoicism, emotional strength, resilience, and the lessons hidden inside life's hardest moments. Stay until the end, because sometimes the thing you are still crying over today may be the very thing you will one day be grateful you survived. Part 3. Some people leave to return you to yourself. Sometimes, someone leaves your life. And the hardest part isn't their absence. It's realizing how much of yourself you had lost while trying to keep them. You stopped doing the things you loved. You abandoned your goals. You became afraid to speak honestly. You constantly adjusted yourself to fit their expectations. You gave more than you could afford to give. And somewhere along the way, you forgot what your own life was supposed to look like. Then they left. And suddenly, you were alone with yourself again. At first, that silence feels unbearable. You reach for your phone. You replay old conversations. You check whether they are thinking about you. You wonder if they will come back. But eventually, something unexpected begins to happen. You start hearing your own thoughts again. You start remembering who you were before the relationship, before the disappointment, before you became obsessed with being chosen. And slowly, you begin returning to yourself. This is one of the most painful truths about loss. Sometimes you don't miss the person as much as you miss the version of yourself you were when you believed everything would work out. The Stoics would remind us not to build our identity around things that are outside our control. Another person's love is outside your control. Their loyalty is outside your control. Their decision to stay is outside your control. But your character is yours. Your choices are yours. Your direction is yours. And when someone leaves, you have a decision to make. You can spend the next year trying to understand why they left, or you can spend that year becoming someone you are proud to meet in the mirror. You can keep asking, "What did I lack?" Or you can ask, "What did I learn?" That second question changes everything. Maybe you learned that you were accepting too little. Maybe you learned that you were confusing attachment with love. Maybe you learned that you were afraid of being alone. Maybe you discovered that you had been searching for someone else to give you the sense of worth you were supposed to build within yourself. These are painful realizations, but they are also gifts, because awareness gives you the ability to choose differently. The next time someone enters your life, you don't have to disappear inside them. You can love them without abandoning your goals. You can care without becoming dependent. You can give without begging. You can stay without losing your identity. And if they leave, you will hurt. Of course you will. You are human, but you won't be destroyed. Because you will still have yourself. That is the kind of strength no relationship can give you, and no breakup can take away. So perhaps the person who left wasn't simply taking something from you. Perhaps their departure was forcing you to reclaim something you had slowly given away, yourself. And one day, you may look back at that ending with completely different eyes. You may realize that losing them was painful, but losing yourself would have been far more expensive. Because sometimes, life doesn't remove people to punish you. Sometimes it removes them because you have spent too long forgetting who you are without them. Part 4. You don't need to understand it yet. One of the hardest things about pain is that we want an explanation immediately. We want to know why they left, why the opportunity disappeared, why the relationship ended, why something we prayed for didn't happen. We believe that if we can just understand the reason, the pain will finally make sense. But life rarely gives us answers on our schedule. Sometimes you have to walk through the darkness before you understand why the path changed. And this is where patience becomes a form of strength. The Stoics understood that we are often limited by our perspective. We see one moment, one event, one disappointment, but we cannot see the entire chain of events that follows. Imagine losing a job. At that moment, it feels like disaster. Months later, you discover a different career. Years later, you realize that losing that job completely changed the direction of your life. The event didn't change. Your understanding of it did. This is why you should be careful about declaring something a tragedy too quickly. You don't know what comes next. The person who rejected you may have saved you from years of incompatibility. The opportunity you didn't receive may have prevented you from committing your life to something that wasn't right for you. The relationship that ended may have forced you to develop independence. The failure that embarrassed you may have taught you humility. You don't know, and you don't have to know today. This doesn't mean that every painful event is secretly good. Some things are simply painful. Some losses are genuinely tragic. Stoicism doesn't require you to romanticize suffering. It asks something more realistic. Can you accept what has already happened without allowing it to destroy your ability to live? That is different. Acceptance doesn't mean approval. It means you stop fighting reality after reality has already spoken. You stop saying, "This shouldn't have happened," because it did. You stop waiting for the past to become different, because it won't. And then you ask, what can I do with what remains? That question is where your power begins. Maybe you cannot get the person back, but you can become wiser. Maybe you cannot reopen the opportunity, but you can create another one. Maybe you cannot change the past, but you can refuse to repeat it. Maybe you cannot understand why the door closed, but you can keep walking toward another door. There will be seasons in your life when you have to move without certainty. You won't know where the road leads. You won't know whether your decision will work. You won't know whether the pain will eventually make sense. Walk anyway, because courage isn't having all the answers. Sometimes courage is taking the next step while still carrying unanswered questions. And perhaps, years from now, you will look back. You will see the people who left, the doors that closed, the dreams that failed, the chapters that ended. And suddenly, the pieces will begin connecting. Not perfectly, not magically, but enough for you to understand something. You were never required to understand everything while you were living through it. You were only required to keep going. So if your life feels confusing right now, don't demand an explanation from tomorrow. Take care of today. Do what is within your control. Keep your character. Keep your discipline. Keep moving. One day, the meaning may reveal itself. And until then, trust the process of becoming who you are meant to be. Part 5. One day, you will look back and understand. One day, you will look back at your life differently. Not from the place where you are hurting now, but from a place you haven't reached yet. And when you look back, you may realize that some of the things you once begged to keep were never meant to follow you into the next chapter. The person you thought you needed forever became a memory. The opportunity you thought was your only chance was replaced by another. The dream that collapsed forced you to build something more meaningful. The rejection that broke your confidence taught you to stop measuring your worth through other people's approval. And the loneliness you feared became the place where you finally learned how to stand on your own. You couldn't see any of this while it was happening, because pain narrows your vision. When your heart is broken, you don't see the future. You see what you lost. But time gives you distance, and distance gives you perspective. This is why you should be careful when judging your life from the middle of the story. You don't know how the chapter ends. A closed door may feel like the end, but perhaps it is simply the end of one direction. A person leaving may feel like abandonment, but perhaps their departure is creating space for you to discover yourself. A failure may feel like proof that you aren't capable, but perhaps it is the experience that will teach you how to succeed differently. You don't know, and that uncertainty is part of being alive. The Stoics understood that we must learn to work with reality instead of constantly demanding that reality give us what we want. You may not get the life you planned, but you can still build a meaningful life. You may not keep everyone you love, but you can love the people who remain more deeply. You may not achieve every dream, but you can become a person whose character is stronger than any single achievement. And perhaps that is the real victory. Not getting everything you wanted, but becoming someone who doesn't need everything to go according to plan in order to remain at peace. So if you are standing in the middle of a painful chapter right now, remember this. This is not the whole story. You are looking at one page, not the entire book. Don't make permanent conclusions about your life based on temporary pain. Don't call yourself a failure because one chapter failed. Don't believe you are abandoned because someone left. Don't believe your future is over because one dream ended. Keep walking, keep learning, keep becoming, because there are versions of yourself you haven't met yet. There are people you haven't met yet. There are places you haven't seen. There are experiences waiting for you that you cannot imagine from where you stand today. And perhaps one day, you will sit quietly and remember everything that once broke your heart. You will remember the tears, the unanswered questions, the nights when you wondered whether life would ever feel normal again. And you will smile. Not because it didn't hurt, but because you finally understand what it gave you. Strength, wisdom, perspective, self-respect, and the ability to let go without losing yourself. Then you will understand. They didn't all leave because you weren't enough. Some left because their chapter was finished. Some doors closed because you were meant to walk somewhere else. Some losses happened because you were becoming someone new. And perhaps the greatest lesson was never about why they left. It was about what you became after they did. So when life takes something from you again, don't immediately ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Take a breath, look forward, and ask, "What is this making room for?" Because one day, you may finally understand. Everything that left was not taking your future away. Some things were simply making space for it. Conclusion. One day, you may look back and realize that not everything you lost was meant to be kept. Some people left. Some doors closed. Some dreams ended. And although it hurt, those endings may have changed the person you became. The deepest Stoic lesson is this. You cannot control what leaves your life, but you can control what you do with the space it leaves behind. So today, stop fighting the past. Accept what you cannot change. Learn from what happened. Return to your goals. Protect your peace. And instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What is this experience teaching me?" You don't need to understand everything right now. Keep walking. One day, the meaning may become clear. If this message helped you, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support gives me the motivation to create more deep lessons about Stoicism, resilience, and inner strength. Thank you for taking the time to watch until the end of the video. See you in the next videos.